it's hard to imagine a world without H.R. Geiger in it and his invention of the biomechanical art style, right? I mean, without him, we wouldn't have Blame or the iconic xenomorph design from Aliens, or just so much was inspired by him. And that's why we're going to look at some of his work in this Taschen book. I don't know if I pronounced that right. And get an idea of who he was as a person. When he started off, it's really interesting because you would figure somebody who draws stuff like this would have a pretty disturbed upbringing, but in reality, it didn't seem like he had that hard of a life as opposed to some artists. Now, he did have some personal tragedies. I know he had a girlfriend that committed suicide and he had breakups and stuff like that. But yeah, he had a very nice family and he had a very nice mother and dad, it seemed like. And he pretty much tells you everything you need to know about himself right there. He says, I was attracted to the opposite sex from a very early age. He literally tells you how important stuff like that is in his own artwork. Like, he mentions that a lot, his combination of sexual biomechanical stuff and, his obsession with mechanics is very present from an early age, especially we're talking about this ghost train, which I wasn't really familiar with what that was beforehand, but you can see some images of it in there, bands and stuff coming in, and this is, if you are a fan of metal, you're probably going to recognize some of the pieces in here. You're, you can see it right there. That is one of the Danzig album covers. I don't remember which one it is for, but he did work with Danzig. It doesn't really mention too much of his musical links in this book, but yeah, you just see how fascinated he is with mechanics, and he carved it out his own identity when it came to artwork. You can see his obsession with he had an obsession with firearms from an early age, and he especially his own father's Luger pistol, and he combines that with the life and death stuff. Look at that. Guillotine. Here he's talking about a guillotine. Um, this is the album art for Sancrosact, and yeah, there's the childbearing machine aspect of it. There's a really interesting video. I can't remember who made it, but it was like discussing his combination of the um, life is birth, birth is death kind of thing. A lot of cycles of death and life in there, and you can see him shooting a looks like a peacemaker there. That's pretty cool. See, in my I made an illustration of him, and I wasn't really aware of his obsession with uh, guns. So I mean, it makes sense. Again, it's a mechanical aspect, but yeah, there's some images there. Sorry, there's some glare, but yeah, there's some of guns, and this one I think is particularly related to. It's called a suicide or something like that. I just got demonetized. I don't care. But there's going to be a lot of not safe for work stuff in here anyway. So yeah, and then that's almost like a kiss there. They look like in a wheelchair or something like that. It's really cool as well to see his ink sketches because I'm mostly used to. Everybody's probably more familiar with his airbrush work, but he also did a lot of ink sketches that are pretty neat, and you'll see him here. He talks about some of his former lovers. Lee, I believe this is the one that committed suicide, and he well, drew her a lot. in his works. It's pretty sad, but that's what he did to cope with it, I guess. And it's fascinating. I don't think they even bring up the fact that she did kill herself in this for probably obvious reasons, but there's some stuff that is omitted in here, definitely. You also get to see how much of a weird person he was and what types of things he would collect outside of firearms were trouser brace fasteners. I mean, who does that, you know? Utterly unique person. You got, which piece is this called? The Chidler Grin. Okay. It's like a crucifix kind of thing. I'm already messing around with the religious stuff as well. Shafts. Yes, this right here is very Blame-esque, and I feel like he's Tsutomu Nihei has actually drawn this before. Uh, then he talks about Chinese torture, which this might come as a surprise to you, but he actually did not really care that much for violence, as you know, bizarre and dark as his artworks appear. Here he talks about his roommate showing him Chinese torture and stuff, and it really made an impact on him. Like he was affected for it for weeks, and that's he would seem like he was generally a pretty caring and sensitive person. And here's a really cool one of Vlad the Impaler. Yeah, never seen this one before, but that's pretty cool. You can see where a lot of anime artists took their inspiration from. And now he talks about one of his most important friends, which is Frederick Kuhn. Um, and Lovecraft as well. Lovecraft was a massive inspiration on him, and he actually got a lot of people confused when he put out the Necronomicon, because some people confused it with, Lovecraft. They finally thought that they got the definitive version of the Necronomicon, but it's Giger's Necronomicon. And it's just really, it just makes sense, the combination of those two. It kicked off a lot of his interest in the occult. And up here, is a really cool black and white sketch of the Phantom of the Opera. That's pretty cool. Here's some in color. Now, not really used to seeing his stuff in color either, so this was really interesting. They're very vivid, bright, and not typical stuff from him. But that's pretty cool. You got more monochrome stuff from him here. And now he talks about sculptures, and he was also really interested in waxwork and all that from the beginning. You can even see the pin sunglasses there. Um, biomechanoids. Yes, this is where he starts talking about developing his style and influences and stuff, and his sculptures. And of course, after a while, Hollywood came knocking and they wanted him. So Dune was one of the projects, and I'm sure everybody knows this now, but he was a part of it, and he created this. What is this even called? It just says Dune 1. He created that, and of course, that Dune movie got scrapped. It's crazy to think that he was one of the artists alongside Mobius and Salvador Dali that would be working on it. I mean, just what a combination. And, of course, Alien, probably one of his biggest contributions to cinema. Um, Great design, and it doesn't really talk about this as much as you think it would, because how important this is for him. You even get the spaceship landed on there too, as long with that. There's some there, and there's kind of the chest burster idea. I'm assuming it looks very similar to Francis Bacon's creatures and stuff. There's some other designs that they burned through. That one just that one looks a little funky. I'm glad they didn't go with that one. And the face hugger, the astronaut. Now he didn't design the suits from the movie. That was done by Mobius. Just a weird mishmash of artists on there, and then you get to see all this sculpture work and stuff, and it's just genuinely very impressive. He was very talented. The space jockey, yeah, just awesome. See a leg and a finger running down it with a pyramid. Very occult symbolism. Oscar awards, yep. This guy won an Oscar award. I mean, what kind of world are we living in where that guy would get an Oscar award? It's impressive. But yeah, I mean, that really launched a lot of his career there. A lot of people wanted him for movies. You can see Poltergeist 2. I didn't even realize he was in a Poltergeist movie. Never watched it before. But that's insane. And naturally, he also dipped into music as well, which is with Debbie Harry of all people, Blondie. And you know, this was before things got really heavy, so I suppose it makes sense, but it mentions Debbie Harry, not Tom G. Warrior or anything like that, I don't think. Or maybe I skipped it, but that's just insane. And his time in Japan, you can see that bar I talked about in one of the shorts there. And right here we have the Goho Doji from, oh shoot, it was some Japanese movie that he worked on. It was originally a novel. And yeah, I mean, he was really big in Japan. I mean, he had his own bar. It's really cool, that design for that. It's such a shame. But it's also fascinating that it almost became a Yakuza hideout. Um, you get more colored sort of ones, xenomorph looking head, and here you get him talking about his experiences with the occult, and it's pretty obvious that he was deeply influenced by stuff like that. And, oh boy. I'm demonetized for sure now. And, yep, there you go. If you're a metalhead, you probably have seen this before on Celtic Frost album cover. But, like I said, it doesn't mention anything about his friendship with Dom G. Warrior. Of all people in his life, I think that he would be there because they both helped each other in a lot of ways. In the beginning stages of that band, they were one of the only people that took that band seriously. Just skulls and babies, just typical stuff here, and you get very, very obvious symbolism here. Cthulhu Rising. Here he talks about Cthulhu Rising, which doesn't show up until this page. It's very small. I can't really see it. I wish it was bigger, but there's a very atypical version of Cthulhu featured in that. Very, very weird. As usual, what you'd expect. Now, another thing that was really impressive about this is that he worked on a Hell's Angels kind of poster, which is mind-boggling to me because I didn't even know that Switzerland had a Hell's Angels sect, but this stuff's cool. I think this is some of the coolest in the whole book. You can see this thing right here with the shades and stuff. This is so cyberpunk and got the horns. It's awesome, man. It's really cool. The biker. And that's about it. Just such an important figure in the art world, and if you like and appreciate his work, I would probably recommend picking this up. It's not as comprehensive as I thought. I think there is a second edition, so maybe check that one out. But for now, that's that's all we're going to look at today. So thank you for watching, and I am still working on the Blade of Immortal video. I took a month's hiatus with that because I was busy doing all that stuff in October, but now I've returned to it and I'm almost through it, so that will be coming soon. And yeah, thank you.